This week, we will look at the story of Elijah as we return to our Faithful Rebel Bible study on Thursday. Now, to set the scene up a little bit, we have to go to 1 Kings 16 at the end of that chapter, where it says that Ahab came to be king, and he married a woman named Jezebel, who was a Canaanite woman who worshiped the god Baal. And when they married, Ahab started to construct idols and altars dedicated to the god Baal, which was turning Israel away from the living God. And God became angry at this and decided to raise up a prophet, raise up Elijah, to go and speak that there will be a drought that will come upon the land. Now, the importance of this, if you remember from our minor prophet Bible study, if you were there for that, was the god Baal is thought to be the god of storms, thought to control the weather, thought to control the earth, vegetation. So if there's a drought coming, what does that say to the legitimacy of Baal? So God sends this drought to the people of Israel. Well, years pass, about 3 years pass, and there's a man named Obadiah who is working in the palace of Ahab. But he's also a faithful rebel himself, as he is hiding the other prophets of Israel and taking care of them so that they were not killed by Ahab and Jezebel. And when Obadiah sees Elijah show up suddenly to go and confront Ahab, he is terrified a bit of this because he knew the consequences of being a prophet at this time in Israel. But Elijah is not deterred in his call. God called Elijah to go speak the truth to Ahab, that he has turned away from the commandments of the Lord, that he has turned his back on the Lord God. And so Ahab meets Elijah, and he tells him to gather his priests of Baal and to take them up to Mount Carmel, and they are going to have a contest to see who is the legitimate God among them. And so over 100 or so priests of Baal gather, and they each have their own sacrifices set. Elijah has one with a bull, and the priests of Baal have theirs as well. And they call out to Baal, the priests, and they say, "Answer us, Baal," and nothing happens. Then Elijah steps up and tells everybody to come closer as he calls upon the Lord God. And what happens is that fire consumes the sacrifices, and all are amazed and in shock because the living God who Elijah called out to answered. And in this show of competition that the Lord God was the winner, Elijah calls for the priests of Baal to be killed. And so they are killed. And Ahab seems to have his heart turned at that moment and goes to Jezebel, perhaps telling her what has happened. But instead of turning her own heart, she becomes angry and vicious and decides to seek revenge after Elijah. And so his life is not safe after that. Elijah took a risk by speaking up. Elijah took the risk of listening to God and feeling compelled to tell Ahab that he was turning the wrong way. And it requires a certain amount of bravery. And when you are called to be such a rebel in the biblical story. But also this Thursday, we're going to ask and contemplate who are some other people that we know who also seem to be rebels as well, who had to be brave, even when it seemed like their own life was on the line. We also will ask, what does this message speak to us today? What are the things in our lives that maybe God is calling on our hearts that we need to speak up or to talk about with others as well? So join us this Thursday.